Hi, and welcome back to Beans and Bezels. If you're active on some of the watch communities on Facebook, you've likely already come across Hemel watches and its founder Marvin Menke. Marvin is the admin of the League of Watch Microbrands and has curated one of the most enjoyable watch discussion groups on Facebook centered around microbrands. He's also the founder of Hemel Watches, a microbrand based in the US, and has a very interesting lineup of utilitarian and just good looking watches. Marvin has a background in design, and that's evident in the cohesive design language across the entire range of Hemel watches. I've heard great things about these watches and I was eager to get my hands on one to review. He was kind enough to loan me this HFT20 Night Ops. Let's check it out. The case is 42mm in diameter, 49mm from lug to lug, and roughly 13.5mm tall. The entire case is brushed with a combination of horizontal and vertical brushing. The overall build is hefty and solid and makes the point that this watch is ready to be tossed around without worry. Compared to the case dimensions, you have pretty short lugs that curve down towards the wrist. The lugs are not drilled through and the lug width is 20mm. You have a very robust feeling bezel with the black ceramic insert. This is the GMT bezel option and has a 120 click unidirectional bezel. I would have preferred that the GMT bezel be bidirectional, but since this is a swap configuration with the dive bezel, I don't blame them for not making two completely different bezel units. The bezel action is very solid, takes a decent bit of effort to move, and has no backplay. A good recipe for a serious tool watch, and the finishing of the filled indices is very good for the price. You have a lume pip at the 12 o'clock position that sits at the center of an orange triangle. The finishing on this isn't as good as the rest of the numerals and has a few holes, none that are visible to the naked eye though. And at the $450 price tag, this isn't really anything to complain about. There is a push-pull crown at the 3 o'clock position that is conical in shape, paying respect to heritage pilot watches. I didn't notice any crown or stem wobble. Flipping it over, you have a simple solid case back with some text. The watch is rated for up to 100 meters of water resistance. The dial is clean, legible, and looks very utilitarian. If you've read my review of the Van Dag Schalmauer, you'll know that dials like this appeal to me very much. The Hemel is also very well finished, and the quality control is remarkable for a sub $500 watch. There is an outer minute and seconds track with Arabic numerals for every increment of 5. The quality of printing is excellent. You then have well proportioned and generously loomed hour numerals that are clearly inspired by classic pilot watches. Once again, the finishing of the printing is great. This is a 2-register chronograph with a 60-minute counter at the 9 o'clock position and a 24-hour indicator at the 3 o'clock position. An interesting choice, and one that I very much appreciate, is the fact that both the subdial hands are entirely loomed. It would have been completely fine if this wasn't, but they decided to do it anyway. Much respect. The hour and minute hands are brushed stainless steel and are generously filled with loom. The proportions on both these hands are excellent, and the minute hand reaches all the way to the minute track. The seconds hand is painted in orange to match the orange accent on the bezel and is very well proportioned too, extending all the way to the seconds track. Overall, the design and finishing of this dial is very impressive. I'm sold on Hemel's quality control if all their watches are this clean. But as you must already know, I'm a bitter and annoying man with a macro lens that refuses to let a good thing be. So I will point out this microscopic particle of paint above the letter M. Did I also find particles like this on my Tudor Black Bay that is roughly 6 times this price? Yes. The loom is great, and I'm pretty sure it will satisfy most people's daily requirements for brightness and longevity. All the loomed elements are C3 superluminova and they're generously applied. The loom design is excellent too, with bright hour numerals and very bright hour and minute hands. The seconds hand tip is also generously loomed, and so is the circular pip at the 12 o'clock. What impressed me the most is the fact that the chronograph subdial hands are also entirely loomed. I think this is brilliant, and you don't see this on most chronographs, affordable or not. This watch uses a Seiko VK64, a hybrid Meca-quartz movement. If you don't already know, I'm a fan of this movement and prefer it to entry-level mechanical movements like the Seagull ST19. For a watch that is built like a tool and is telling you to knock it into stuff just because it can handle it, a movement like the ST19 would completely negate that robustness, so I think the choice of movement here is very appropriate. At the price of $450, you're still in the affordable category, but you can argue that it is on the higher end for a quartz or Meca-quartz watch. With that in mind, I would have preferred if it didn't have a ghost date position. The 42mm diameter, 49mm lug-to-lug width, and roughly 13.5mm tall case give it a substantial wrist presence. On my 6 1/4-inch wrist, it sits on the larger side of what I'd wear, but it's not uncomfortably big thanks to the 49mm lug-to-lug width. When you think quartz or Meca-quartz in this case, you often think of a very lightweight watch, but this watch caught me by surprise with its weight of 100 grams on the leather strap. The watch is reasonably well balanced, and the curved lugs help it stay grounded on and around the wrist. The overall build quality and dimensions make this watch feel very much like a tactical tool watch that is ready to take a beating and has the wrist presence to back that up. To wrap things up, if you're like me and have no problems with owning a Meca-quartz movement, and if you can appreciate a watch that's built like a tank, you're going to love this. The build quality is great, The design is simple but very well executed, and the finishing and quality control punches well above its weight class. If you had a gun to my head, or worse, a Filippo Loretti watch to my wrist, and asked me to list some complaints, the only thing I could really think of is the very thick strap, the ghost date position, and maybe the lack of drill-through lugs. But these are not remotely close to being problem areas, so if you are in the market for a Meca-quartz Chronograph, you'll want to check this one out. Once again, thanks for watching, and don't forget to read the full-length review in the link below.